So now that we've had a thorough look at the Lusitania story, let's have a quick look at another of the triggering events that would lead the United States into World War I. The Zimmermann telegram, which was released to the public on March 1st, 1917. And in a lot of the headlines around the United States, you'd think that Germany declared war on the United States, which of course wasn't the case. And here we can see a more accurate summary of the main point behind the Zimmermann telegram, which we'll see in a minute. But Germany, in planning unrestricted submarine warfare and counting its consequences, proposed an alliance with Mexico and Japan to make war on the United States if this country should not remain neutral. And like I say, that's a little bit more accurate of a description of the main point behind the Zimmermann telegram. But that's not really the scandalous part of the Zimmermann telegram story. Text of the astounding document dated at Berlin, January 19th. And that is the scandal we're going to look at, because that January 19th date is a lie. In the National Archives, you'll find a pretty good overall summary of the Zimmermann telegram scandal. The original telegram was sent from Berlin on January 16th, not the 19th. And again we see room 40, and they intercepted it and started decoding it, and had the gist of its context decoded by the next day, January 17th. We can see below, the room 40 code breakers intercepted the message as it passed briefly over British territory. The Germans were often forced to use cables belonging to neutral countries after their own Atlantic cables were cut earlier in the war. US President Wilson allowed Bernstorff, who was the German ambassador in Washington, to use American transatlantic cables to send diplomatic messages back and forth between Germany and the West. Knowing that Bernstorff, the German ambassador in Washington, had received permission to use the State Department cable, Zimmermann, who was the German Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, had the coded message delivered to the US Embassy in Berlin. It was then transmitted by diplomatic cable to Copenhagen, before being wired to London and eventually to Washington. It was when the cable went through British territory that Room 40 intercepted it and started decoding it. The US State Department received the telegram on January 17th and delivered it to German Ambassador Bernstorff the following day. He then forwarded it to Heinrich von Eckart, the German ambassador to Mexico, on January 19th. And there's that date, and when the lie kicks in. And we'll see why that January 19th date is important. And you might also be wondering why the American public wasn't told anything about this until March 1st. And that's because President Wilson didn't even find out about it until February 24th, only a week before it went public, as we'll see. And there's a reason for that. Admiral William Blinker Hall, the British Director of Naval Intelligence, was faced with a dilemma. His Room 40 cryptographers had intercepted Zimmermann's telegram to Bernstorff, but knowing they'd have to admit to having spied on American diplomatic traffic, he was unprepared to reveal what had been uncovered. But with seemingly no end to the war in sight, and the Americans continuing to stand on the sidelines, Hall decided on February 5th that the time had come to notify his superiors of the intercepted cable. Hall told them that the decoding was not yet complete and they needed more time before notifying the Americans of the telegram's existence. The bulk of the telegram had already been deciphered, and Hall clearly understood what it suggested, but he was not yet ready to reveal its contents to the American government. What Hall really needed was time to find a way in which to deliver the news to Wilson without divulging the fact that the British had been intercepting messages sent over the American cable wires. Knowing that Ambassador Bernstorff in Washington would have relayed the message to Minister Eckart down in Mexico using the commercial telegraph system, Hall also knew a duplicate copy would exist in the Mexico City Telegraph Office. The Bernstorff to Eckart copy would have slight differences in date, address, and signature from the original sent by Zimmermann to Bernstorff. If this copy could be obtained and made public, it would appear as if it had been intercepted somewhere between Washington and Mexico. On February 10th, a British agent in Mexico known only as Mr. H was able to bribe an employee of the telegraph office and secure a copy of the message. British Foreign Minister Arthur Balfour showed the ciphertext to U.S. Ambassador Walter Page during a February 23rd meeting. The next day, Page cabled Secretary of State Lansing with the news. And that's how and why President Wilson didn't find out about it until February 24th. To get a better understanding, here's a timeline of events. On January 16th, Arthur Zimmermann, the German Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, sent the telegram in cipher code 0075. And as it passed through British territory, Room 40 intercepted it and had a pretty good idea of what it said by the next day, January 17th. Which is when it would arrive over in the State Department in Washington, and they would give it to German Ambassador Bernstorff the next day on January 18th. And of course the US didn't have the German codes deciphered like the British did, so they had no idea what the coded telegram said. The next day on January 19th, the date that the lie revolves around, is when German Ambassador Bernstorff sent the telegram down to German Minister von Eckart using code 13040, because von Eckart didn't have the newer 0075 code. So at this point, the British already know the main substance of the telegram, thanks to the interception and decoding work of Room 40. But they keep it a secret, for a few reasons. For one, as mentioned, they didn't want the United States to know they were intercepting and reading their diplomatic correspondence with Germany. Another is that if they revealed the telegram at this point, Germany would know Britain had deciphered their newer 0075 code. And also, they wanted to keep the existence of Room 40 a secret still. So knowing the telegram was relayed from Ambassador Bernstorff in Washington to Minister von Eckart in Mexico using the older code 13040, they realized that if they could get a copy of that telegram, they could use that to inform the United States, while keeping secret the existence of Room 40 and their ability to translate German code 0075, and continue to hide the fact that they had been intercepting and reading telegrams between Germany and the United States. So the British set about to get a copy of the telegram sent from Washington to Mexico, and on February 10th, a British agent was able to secure a copy and send it back to Britain. And here's the story, or rather lies, the British would tell the United States. This is a copy of the telegram sent from U.S. Ambassador to Britain Walter Page to Secretary of State Lansing and President Wilson on February 24th, informing them about the telegram, the day after Walter Page was told about it by British Foreign Minister Arthur Balfour. And Walter Page writes, "Balfour has handed me the text of a cipher telegram from Zimmermann, German Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, to the German Minister to Mexico, which was sent via Washington and relayed by Bernstorff on January 19th. I give you the English translation as follows. And this is what the Zimmermann telegram says. We intend to begin on the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. We shall endeavor in spite of this to keep the United States of America neutral. In the event of this not succeeding, we make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis: make war together, make peace together, generous financial support, and an understanding on our part that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona." And here's the rest of the Zimmermann telegram, where they mention Japan as well. Following that, U.S. Ambassador Walter Page writes, "The receipt of this information has so greatly exercised the British government that they have lost no time in communicating it to me to transmit to you." And that's of course a bunch of BS, not on Walter Page's part, but the British government's part. They had intercepted the message on January 16th when it was sent from Germany, and had enough of it deciphered on January 17th to understand its contents. But they decided to keep it secret for the next 6 weeks for the reasons previously mentioned. And only after they got the copy out of Mexico in February did they finally tell U.S. Ambassador Page in London on February 23rd about the telegram, and lied and covered everything up about the telegram's interception by Room 40 on January 16th, and giving him this information instead. Early in the war, the British government obtained possession of a copy of the German cipher code used in the above message, which is the code 13040, and have made it their business to obtain copies of Bernstorff's cipher telegrams to Mexico, amongst others, which are sent back to London and deciphered here. This accounts for their being able to decipher this telegram from the German government to the representative of Mexico, and also for the delay from January 19th until now in their receiving the information. So that's all a bunch of BS the British fed to US Ambassador Page. And that's why President Wilson wouldn't find out about it until February 24th, and the American public wouldn't find out about it until March 1st. Among some of the interesting aspects to those lies is that because of Room 40's interception of the telegram when it was sent, Britain knew by January 17th that Germany was planning to start unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1st. Meanwhile, President Wilson and the United States wouldn't know anything about it until Germany announced it to the world on January 31st, and it hit the papers the next day. And for some context in looking at the United States-Mexican relationship of the time, we can see that less than a year before, things weren't going very well. And this would be the time of Pancho Villa, which would need a whole video of its own. But indeed, tensions were high between the two countries. And we can see that US troops were in Mexico right up and into the whole Zimmermann telegram scandal. And to let you know, in one of the upcoming chapters, we'll see another person who played a role in Mexico during this time that you'll find surprising. So, we've had a really good look into the three main reasons that are generally cited as to why the United States entered World War I. Reasons that have been cited for over 100 years now. We saw J.P. Morgan Jr. himself cite these reasons in 1936, and that certainly comes as no surprise, as we'll see. But something that I noticed is that we're on the State Department's website, and when talking about the Zimmermann telegram, they say, on January 19, 1917, British naval intelligence intercepted and decrypted a telegram sent by the German Foreign Minister, Arthur Zimmermann. And as we just saw from the National Archives, that's totally wrong. It was sent from Berlin on January 16th and intercepted over Britain the same day, and they had the bulk of it deciphered by January 17th. And after scheming and plotting for about 6 weeks, they finally told US Ambassador Walter Page about it on February 23rd. So why would they put that on the US State Department's website, you might ask? That's because the original document with the BS story of lies sent to President Wilson and Secretary of State Robert Lansing, notifying them about the Zimmermann telegram that we just looked at, was a State Department document. So whichever State Department official that put this info on the website most likely referenced that document and just doesn't have a clue. But at least down below they acknowledge. The precise reasons for Wilson's decision to choose war in 1917 remain the subject of debate among historians. The Lusitania was sunk on May 7, 1915, and on January 31, 1917, Germany announced to the world that they would resume unrestricted submarine warfare. And on February 24, 1917, is when President Wilson would find out about the Zimmermann telegram, and yet he wouldn't declare war until April 6, 1917. So it doesn't look like any of these events were the actual cause of the United States to enter the war. But let's have a look at another reason, or rather billions of them,